Allora,
Now, I would like to give the floor to a round table with architects. I would like to call Massimo Roj from Project CMR, Marco Bonelli, founder of M2 Atelier, and Piero Lissoni from Lissoni and Partners. It's going to be very interesting.
Raccontare progetto CMR.
Telling about the CMR project, reflecting on practices shaping the physical and cultural landscape. It's continuous research and planning united by movement, a dynamic approach, and long-term planning.
Il cambiamento.
Change is our final destination.
Esplora.com
eccoci.
Okay, I would like to start from Piero Lissoni, the protagonist of the last video. So my first question regards your professional involvement in several sectors, not only design, but also, for example, in the yachting industry. So yours is a privileged point of view. How is the role of designers and architects changing in the light of the changes that have involved all of us, have affected all of us? And how have requests from customers changed, for example? Ooh, this is a difficult question. It's a sort of free-ranging question. Well, I would say this is probably a little bit of a tricky question. Well, there is no fixed formula. I think that in this moment, I could also sell at the stock exchange, for example. And there's a change which is deeply embedded in the system. And yesterday, I've heard about the changes brought about by the pandemics. But this change has been going on for years now. Can you please adjust your microphone settings? Should I adjust my microphone or maybe speak louder, speak more loudly? Now, as I was saying, the problem is not the pre-pandemics, the post-pandemics. Our sector has been evolving for the last 50 years. There's been an acceleration in the last 20 years. I may say it was a very, very fast acceleration. But what is going on now is that the companies I work with, the systems, the networks I work with, are going virtual. Several aspects of our profession is becoming virtual, but there has been a rehumanization of other aspects. For example, in the last year, I've seen the emergence of a new need of working in a team, not a digital team, but also, and especially, a physical team. Another change I've seen is that companies, whatever their sector they work in is, need to work with complex, compound teams in order to deal with complex and compound problems. This is where we are. So you think there's a need for a wide range of skills. Well, there's going back to the humanistic model. So we need to be scientific on one side, but balance this scientific approach with a humanistic approach. I've never given up this humanistic approach, but many are returning to humanities now. Of course, we need extremely specialized people with technical skills, but also people with a mind and a heart which are more open to working in different directions at different levels. This is very interesting. Massimo Roj, you work with urban planning, you work with stadiums, for example, and the projects in Milan, in Cagliari. Which changes are you seeing at the urban planning level by local authorities, but also by citizens? Well, I think this pandemics forced us all to reflect and rediscover our past, rediscover the way we were. In order to plan your future, you must recognize your past. And so we started walking around our districts again, the famous, the city you can, the part of the city you can walk in 15 minutes. We've rediscovered the shops in our districts, the places where we can socialize in our districts, squares, urban parks, our yards. And I think that urban planning must be about polycentric cities, the same way it was in the past. Those of you who have worked abroad have seen that, for example, Asian cities have exploded in a very short time, while the advantage of the old continent and Italy especially is that our cities have been expanding for centuries. So they have been adapting to the changes in population, and people have adapted to the changes in the city. In Asia, this was not possible because it all happened very fast. We did urban planning according to principles which were valid in the 50s. Dividing the city according to its functions. A part of the city for commerce, a part of the city for living, a part of the city for sleeping. And so people must move around constantly. There are some members of our staff in Beijing who commute, whose commute takes 3 hours each way. But why don't we try and go back to our origins? So the place you live is near to the place where you work, which is not only a European tradition, because, for example, in Thailand and Vietnam, cities used to develop in the same way. So this is a more man-tailored approach. For example, in Shanghai, I was talking with a representative of Philips who lived in a very small village in the United States, in Michigan, and he said that he finally went back to his home and he wanted to go to the shopping mall, which is the main place where people socialize in places like that. And he was blocked, he was stopped by the police because he went to the shopping mall on foot and it wasn't allowed to go on foot. You should go to the shopping mall by car. These are aberrations, of course, that we must absolutely avoid. Marco Bonelli. We talked a couple of days ago, and we were talking about the fact that this change brought about by COVID has implied an increase of the requirement of customer intimacy, because customers want companies to interpret and meet their needs. Yes, Piero was talking about people being at the very center of things. And I must say that in our sector, we were very lucky because we didn't really suffer the consequences of COVID. We talked with private customers. We talked with the owners of large multinationals. My company mainly works abroad, and we noticed that Zoom calls, if properly planned, and with people organized by people who literally give you 1 hour of their time, devote 1 hour of their time to you, and they have the opportunity to slow down at home, in their yacht, in their holiday home. And we were able, in this way, to go very deep into the needs of the customers. And architects must also be a little bit of a psychology. And when you have a limited amount of time, because you must move around the city to go to a meeting, so maybe you have only 10 minutes to devote to a customer. With Zoom calls, if you properly plan that and you can devote 1 hour of your time to an individual customer in the yachting, retail sector, or a private customer, or whatever it is, but the quality of the relationship with the customer has improved thanks to Zoom and other instruments, because you can get to know a person better, because people have, for example, if they're planning the furniture, the design, interior design of their house, they have, for example, requirements connected to their family needs or their working needs, and maybe they change their mind, and maybe they have, and the architect must be flexible. Do they ask questions about materials? Do they go deep into detail? Yes, and for example, we were talking about the quality of lighting, cost saving, resource saving, and the quality of materials. Even in the yachting industry, where we have very high-end customers, we have relatively young customers, 50 years old, 60 years old, and they think about their yacht as a place where they can work from or grow their children in. So it's not a place where you can show off, let's say, and we must create informal, domestic environments. So this is a whole new market segment for us, and we deal with it every day, and we must understand it better. We must establish more intimacy with the customer, and so we were able to meet their deeper needs. Now, I would like to go back to Piero Lissoni. You talked about the growth of personalized products, ad hoc products and services. What's the impact of this growth on companies and designers? Well, for some people, this is a nightmare, while for designers and architects, this was some kind of deliverance. But nightmare is due to the different point of view we deal with these things. The growth of automation, robotics, and domotics, and the use of artificial intelligence has broken the rules of something which was not sustainable in the past. So today we have technologies allowing us to create things which were unthinkable in the past. So why should we continue using models that belong to the past? Italian companies reason in a different way because they're small enterprises. They are super craftsman workshops, let's say. They're not even companies. And so, of course, this allows us to create every product according to a tailored approach, a personalized approach. One of the things we discovered is that the hardware part of the house, that is large furniture, kitchens, and so on, well, in this moment, we can tailor them as far as finishings are concerned, for example. Things are more complex with couches and sofas and lightnings, but the rest of the house can be personalized, and this was one of the strongest points of the Italian entrepreneurship. Our model used to be the German model, which was a systematic model. We broke this paradigm. We used the new technologies to do different things, and that's where the rest of the market is at the moment. Do you think this is a competitive advantage? Yes, of course, because we live in a liquid society, and we can also manage, for example, our clothes. Our clothes are personalized. And why shouldn't we adjust this approach and apply it to the design sector? I visit many companies, and this is what I like about my job, because I like the dust that you breathe when you enter a workshop. So you can see the mindset approach versus the technology-centered approach. So I'm very positive about this moment. Wow, I think this is a very positive takeaway message here. And I would like to conclude. When companies talk about the old craftsman who had a violinist hand. Now you have 20 years old workers who interact with computers, who started dialogue with these technologies. And so they have violinists' hands too. They only use different instruments. Well, so we can go back to all the traditions, because it's very difficult to find young people who can work that way. And so this is a way of bypassing the problem. Now, Massimo, what do you think about the new market's needs? Well, we have different components in our company. We have different attitudes which are pooled together, And we have architects who have discovered that there is an engineering part in designing, and engineers have discovered the aesthetic side of design. And of course, we acquire and absorb information from groups who work with end users, for example. We tend to work more for international groups, for example. And so we acquire some information, we see how things work in a certain domain, and then they transfer their knowledge on those who work on products. We do a lot of research on materials. This is a fundamental element in the work with companies. And then all together, we find a solution. Massimo was mentioning the relationship between lightning and sound, for example. We've designed an object that brings together these two elements together. This product was created several years ago, and 2 years ago we turned this into an industrial product. And we found the technology and the materials required for this product, sustainable materials. For example, we recycle 30 PET plastic bottles in order to produce this lamp. So this product is also sustainable. So cooperation with different areas and different domains is key, because in this way we acquire information that cannot be acquired by the eye of an individual, a single individual. How do you see this aspect of the evolution of research on the product? And we are surrounded by innovation. Companies basically spoon feed us with innovation. And we're lucky enough to work in close contact with these innovative companies. So there's some kind of symbiosis between us. For example, sustainability is a really fundamental topic today, and innovation is key in this field. I think that there is an increase of quality and an increase in the perception of quality. This is something which happened in the COVID and post-COVID period, because we were forced to spend a lot of time in our houses, which were places where we just spent a limited amount of time. So, well, we were forced to stay at home and spend a lot of time there, maybe with our children and families, and we were forced to notice some things. We were forced to understand that some things were low quality, and so that's why the fast buying model became, in a way, obsolete. Of course, we all do fast purchases, but we were forced to consider the quality of the things that surround us a lot more than in the past. And this is a change which involves customers and designers, and there's an increase in the demand for quality. And I think that this is linked to the amount of time we spend at home. You feel at the center of your home. You are at the center of your environment. Some people basically live in their office, some people work only from home. So creating an environment at home where we can work, for example, implies more attention to lighting, for example. Or if you spend a lot of time at the office, you must make it your home. So your office must be a little bit more lofty, let's say. We have an office in London, and We have never been able to physically go to the construction sites, but in the journey of designing this office, we changed a lot of things. We made the office more welcoming, more lofty, more residential. We added sofas and couches, and we gave it a touch of home, because a lot of people in London are still working from remote. So it was vital to create a place where people want to go. They're not forced to go to the office, but they want to go to the office, for example, for meetings or other occasions. And so it must be a place where you want to go physically to meet your colleagues, to generate innovation, and so on and so forth. So all of these topics are closely intertwined. Piero, you were talking about the octane industry, and Massimo Perotti, who is the CEO and chairman of San Lorenzo. You are the art director of San Lorenzo. What was the impact of starting to work in the yachting industry, and what was your perception? Do you know what an illegal worker is? Well, I am an illegal worker in the world of yachting, and I am an outsider. For me, yachting is a professional condition characterized by a very, very high level of technology, with an aesthetic ideal which is very close to Admiral George Nelson. So currently, I am an illegal resident, an illegal worker in the world of yachting, because I come from another universe. When I met Mr. Perotti, we started talking, and we started thinking together, not as designers of yachts, but as an entrepreneur who builds objects which float, and a designer, an architect. So we started considering all the aspects of a complex company, of a company which builds yachts which are up to 70 meters of length. They work with compounds, and we started thinking about the graphic aspects and the construction aspects. An architect thinks in 3 dimensions from the technological point of view. When we design a building, the architectural side is closely connected to the mechanical aspects and engineering aspects of buildings. Both are the same thing. So I came to this world, to this universe, as an outsider. I am not really an expert of the core, because I'm terrible at that, and I reasoned from an industrial point of view. And the added value was a bidimensional attitude, graphic stance. So you follow this at a multidisciplinary level, right? Yes, technically we are schizophrenics, because there are architects who work on the graphics who work on the architectural sides. It's not really clear. The boundaries are not really clear in our company, in our studio, but we're still here. So maybe sometimes being schizophrenic is not that bad. So from buildings to yachts to the business cards of professionals, exhibits by a specific artist maybe. So we work every day. We have fights with engineers every day, and I'm proud of it. And well, your company has had very positive outcomes. So this is because of the engineers. Are they open-minded engineers? Well, not necessarily, but they're very good. Okay, so we have an expert in stadiums here, the famous Stadium of Milan. Are we going to build it or not? Okay, so let's leave the technical side aside. Well, I hope you're not a supporter of Inter. Yes, I am, among other things, by the way. Well, I am not really an expert in stadiums. For 30 years, I have worked on offices, and maybe that was enough. And I am also a very good fan of sports. And in China, we have designed 4 stadiums for a company which only deals with sports facilities. Then we worked in Tirana, in Cagliari, and we're waiting for an answer from the municipality of Milan for the Milan Stadium. Maybe this is the evolution, the natural evolution of an individual's professional career. Yesterday, I was in Rome for the presentation of the Lega Pro initiative. We won a tender, and we worked on a strategic set of guidelines for the construction or reconstruction of stadiums. Lega Pro deals with 60 football teams, and 57 teams answered to our survey. And we applied office space planning to the world of sports. So we created a modular stadium concept. This is part of the evolution of urban regeneration, because it is a place of socialization, and we all grew up in the yard of our church, of our parish. But a stadium is a lay parish, let's say. So we are now working on the importance of sports, which has also been recognized by the Recovery Fund. Let's hope that the funds allocated will increase, because we should start a virtuous circle in our cities. In small cities, for example, stadiums are often neglected because they're the property of municipalities, which often lack fund to reconstruct them or build them from scratch. I think that this is a unique opportunity. We've got resources, we've got ideas. What we lack is projects. We need projects in order to use these funds, which are available now. We're all willing to do so, and let's hope that the Italian world of entrepreneurship can break this wall of bureaucracy. There's law number 147 for stadiums. We've been working on the Cagliari Stadium for 2 years now, and in spite of the national law, local authorities do not want to apply it. And the same thing is happening in Milan. And we must speed up bureaucratic practices. It took 14 years for Juventus to build a stadium, 15 years for Udinese. In other countries, it only takes 4 years to build a stadium, including the design project. This is ridiculous, come on. One last question. We were talking about globalization before. We were talking about a changing world. What is the role of the architecture studios, architectural companies? Do they have to evolve? Do you feel you're too small to compete at the international level? Do you think keeping small is important because it allows you more flexibility? What do you think about it? Well, this question is for him. I think that small is beautiful only if you grow, because if you don't, you're being eaten up by multinationals. In the 60s, we were a world power in architecture. We have 147,000 architects in the professional associations. In China, they have 48,000 architects. And this is ridiculous. We're a country of architects, and we're not able to get together and create a competitive force at the international level. Of course, we must keep iconic, and we must keep alive our craftsmanship tradition. But we need somebody who puts all of these skills together. This is like an orchestra. Each musician is excellent at playing their instrument, but you need somebody who actually creates the music. This is something we can do. Lawyers have done so. Architects haven't, because we're all prima donnas. We want to do everything on our own, but I think that we should unite in order to improve our work and increase our influence. Dialogue can enrich all of us. Marco, what do you think? Well, we have a different approach, a different personal story. You're right when you talk about lawyers. And the situation has changed over the past. We're a boutique studio. We've got 25 architects. This means that our work is carried out in a different way. I like getting to know all of my clients. I'm talking about private clients here. So the dynamics are very, very different from urban planning, let's say. And what you say, Massimo, is right. But for example, now we're working on a project in San Francisco. They had to choose between Norman Foster and us. So they chose us. So we were very, very excited about it. The fact that you put yourself into what you do, your flexibility, your psychology, your character, is the core of the Made in Italy. And this is very much appreciated abroad. And can I add something? We've seen that in the furniture sector, people are selling a brand. What do you think, Piero? That if you get to know architects, you tend to avoid them because you understand that they're strange animals and they're evil. They're so evil. Architects can damage things in a way that no other category is able to do. Frank Lloyd Wright once wrote that a doctor can cover their mistakes with sand. We do it with Evie. And I think that Massimo is right when he says that in order to acquire some world-class projects, we must unite, we must get together. But on the other sides, I think that being small means being more agile and being able to play as an outsider and being able to work on what I want to work on. When I realize that the studio is too large to allow me to participate in every individual project, well, probably I'll change job then. Because our job is a passion. And of course, we must all abide by the rules, and I understand that we must get together to survive. And I think we can find a balance between these two dimensions. Okay, so good luck for everyone, and thank you.